Hello and welcome back to Tech Day's 10-minute IT Jams. I'm Tech Day's Managing Editor and today we're talking with Enghouse Interactive. Enghouse Interactive Solution Suite includes omni-channel contact centre, self-service, attendant operator consoles and workforce optimization, which are all cloud-based and highly scalable. Today we're talking with Enghouse's Director of Global Product Management, Anna Stokes, to find out more about contact centre trends such as video and AI. Welcome, Anna.
Hi.
Okay, so firstly, can you tell us about contact centre trends that Enghouse saw in 2020?
Yeah, I think when you ask people what their strongest memories of 2020 will be, most will circle around the pandemic. You know, COVID-19 has pushed us to think of business capabilities in entirely new ways. And to slow the spread of the disease, companies were really forced to rapidly rethink how they function. Work from home became our new normal. We had these long periods of no person-to-person contact, so remote communications became the primary way to connect with our customers. And that is the job of the contact centres. So although most centres I speak with had a strategy they were working towards for digital engagement, they were really forced to accelerate this and really optimise their business with work from home capabilities. Things like internal collaboration tools or expanding the centres to include text-based media, and to alleviate this new pressure on the customer service channels, even including some automation.
Okay, so how did you see these reflected here locally in Asia Pacific?
Well, locally, we've dealt with some pretty horrific events over the years, whether it be earthquakes or fires. And because of these, many operations have certainly documented their business continuity plans. But this was the first time that they were forced to action these to ensure their business operations could continue in case of an emergency. And let's face it, pandemic lockdown level 4 certainly fits that description. Many continuity plans had failed to allow for a long-term, complete relocation of all staff. And for most centres, working from home was a totally new idea. You know, we didn't only have the obvious requirement for off-site access to hardware and business applications. Organisations also had to think about ways to maintain engagement, both internally and externally, as face-to-face meetings were all but abolished overnight. And as a result, we saw a vast surge of investment in collaboration software. You know, everyone's heard of the phenomenal success of Microsoft Teams. With Microsoft reporting, they added, I think it was 95 million users in 2020. That was an almost 900% growth from March to June. And here at Enghouse, in addition to record sales for our own video solution, we've already had more than 50 contact centre customers transition all their business communication to Teams. I'm really excited. Over a quarter of these are actually in APAC. You know, collaboration has also helped us deal with another outcome of COVID, the isolation created by work from home. It significantly affected employee mental health and wellbeing. And we've always been known in APAC to look after our staff, and video is a great tool for that. It creates a far closer engagement with remote staff than things like emails or chat or even a phone call. And that's really helped our managers identify their at-risk employees quickly. We're also seeing new tools to mimic some of the aspects of a shared workspace. Think backgrounds for your video that show your office space, right through to persistent video, whereby mousing over a contact, it creates an instant live video chat. A really similar experience to one of leaning over and starting a conversation with a cubicle neighbour. Another key tool used by contact centres to help deal with isolation was supervision tools. Before COVID, team leaders just used to rely on sitting with their staff and monitoring or training, but remote management was a really steep learning curve. We know organisations are concerned with the potential for remote workers to be less diligent, but now on the other side of the coin, we're seeing an awareness about overproductivity and burnout from poor work-life balance. We saw a steep uptake in call recording and quality management platforms that really help our managers keep close to their teams. Remote supervision is important not just to ensure high standards are being kept, but it's also enabling better support for staff when an agent can't just stand up and wave. And the follow-up training is made so easy. Rather than wading through hours of content, the supervisor can use things like the built-in AI capabilities to highlight the extremes, the good and the bad, so they can focus in on specific interactions, skipping straight to the ones that really require their input. This is where a quality management tool really helps. You can monitor silently to maintain your high standards, or you can let the team that you're always there, not only keeping an eye on the quality of customer interactions, but more importantly, supporting them and their well-being.
Okay, so you've talked a little bit about what happened in 2020. So let's look forward to 2021. Firstly, you mentioned businesses that are adding new channels to the contact centre. What are the popular ones you've seen, and what can we expect more of?
Yeah, because the contact centre became the focus for all of the business customer contact, to handle an increasing volume of interactions, we saw organisations really race to add further contact channels that their customers wanted to use. And the winners on the day were definitely chat and video. In saying that, the shift from a voice-centric centre to a contact centre that was optimised for digital comms, it wasn't always successfully implemented. We have some interesting intelligence from British Telecom. They do a lot of primary research themselves, and they've shown that in some markets, voice was actually increasing in customer preference because of poorly implemented digital channel support. At the end of the day, there's a lot of technology out there, but it needs to be harnessed and aligned with your current and your future customer preferences. Web chat lost significant ground through poor implementation, and once the poor implementation on the business side, and therefore often a poor and disappointing experience had by the customer. And once the customer has this poor experience, they're really unlikely to try that channel a second time. But here at Enghouse, our experience shows that if organisations continue to put the customer at the centre of the whole interaction experience, that's voice, it's digital and it's automation, and you make sure you look at how the customer wants to interact with you, you'll almost always be successful.
Okay, so you mentioned that video was a huge part of the 2020 experience. So can we expect that to see that in the contact centre as well in the future?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Video's moved from something we only used on personal calls to becoming a norm for business interactions. And this in turn means that customers are not only more confident using this channel, but they're tech ready to do so. Businesses are finding that you can reduce the time spent on calls with customers while really improving the outcome, simply by seeing what the customer is actually referencing, rather than just listening to the lengthy, often misleading descriptions. My tap is broken. It turns from a 50-question shootout of what type of tap it is and how it's behaving into a really quick visual of the actual problem experienced by the user. And it's completely cross-transferable across industries. Think about health. In the middle of a pandemic, healthcare has never been so critical and yet so dangerous. For every healthcare provider, a primary concern is how to protect their frontline staff and the other patients from spreading the potentially deadly infection. Video is designed to support scenarios in which patients are isolated. It's designed for when medical resources are stretched. And it allows a health professional to really see firsthand the symptoms a patient is experiencing, allowing them to provide a remote diagnosis and treatment.
Okay, so let's talk about AI for our last question. There's a lot of noise about AI. So how are you seeing contact centres taking advantage of that, and what would you recommend to our audience?
Oh, there are so many levels of AI, everything from an all-singing, all-dancing avatar to a really simple knowledge-based Q&A engine. And when speaking to my customers, especially here locally in APAC, they cleverly tend to start with the use of a chatbot. I always recommend looking at your interactions, focus in on the most basic and mundane of inquiries, and consider implementing a chatbot to respond to these. Take the load off your agents who are overqualified for these FAQs. Leave them to have intelligent conversations with your customers and giving them a fast response on the more complex inquiries that, will offer a much better experience for your customer, and it will give you a much happier workforce as well. And that central database of responses that you're using to power the bot, that would ensure that all the information provided to your customers is current, is consistent, and it's accurate. And you can use that same knowledge base to power a bot listening into your calls, and you can provide the answers directly to your agents to pass to the customer. This is really helpful with ensuring the right messaging is being passed for compliance reasons, as well as training new staff in a quick and now a remote way. I also really like the bots that offer emotive feedback to the agent during the call. You're speaking too quickly, or you need to alter your tone, automatically measuring speaking behaviours and scoring in real time, and using real-time speech analytics soft evaluators. It's a brilliant way to ensure you're providing a top service. I think all things considered, we're going to see a lot more AI in this region as organisations realise both the benefits and just how simple it is to implement. I think we'd actually be surprised to see just how much it is in use around us today.
Yeah, so many possibilities for the contact centre and making their business so much more streamlined and more efficient. Okay, that was a 10-minute IT jam with Enghouse Interactive's Director of Global Product Management, Anna Stokes. Thank you so much for talking to us, Anna.
Thank you.